This week we are talking logistics outsourcing and 3 very common mistakes that I see companies making that I don't want you to make. So that's it, coming right up. So if you haven't been on the channel before, you'll find loads of videos on the channel about logistics outsourcing. Let's put one up here, which is a whole playlist of outsourcing videos. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do hit the subscribe button because we have new videos coming out every week. Okay, so we're talking about logistics outsourcing again this week. Why? Well, it's a topic that I talk a lot about because so many companies make mistakes going through the outsourcing process. Both the customers of logistics companies and the logistics companies, the 3PLs, the freight providers as well. This week I want to talk a little bit about the customers of 3PLs and the 3 most common mistakes that I see them making so that you don't have to make them. Number 1, data, and I talk about this a lot. If you are going to ask a company to quote on providing logistics services to you, and let's say in this example it's going to be outsourced warehousing, you need to provide a lot of accurate data. Otherwise, how the heck are they going to be able to quote? And a lot of people, a lot of companies underestimate the amount of data required. Just think about it for a moment. If I'm going to design a warehousing solution for you, I've got to come up with the warehouse layout, I've got to determine the most appropriate storage media to use, I've got to understand the different picking methods that I might adopt so that I can make it efficient and so it's going to be less expensive for you. And that requires a lot of data. So what data specifically? The 2 most important bits of data, I think, are the product master. And in the product master, I'd hope that you have product weights and dimensions, things like how many eaches fit in an inner, how many inners fit in a carton, how many cartons fit on a layer, how many layers fit on a pallet. All of this dimensional information is really important so that your 3PL can design the storage solution for you. They can work out exactly how much space you need. And of course, linked to that, how much product you expect to store, what sort of inventory levels and stock turns and so on. So that's the product related information. The next is the demand information, and this is really important because this drives the picking activity and a large part of the cost within any warehouse operation and a large part of the labour cost. So they need to see transactional level data there. Now, whenever I'm doing this with some of our consulting clients and helping them through the process, we generally ask for 12 months of that transactional data, that demand data, that order data, so that you can sanitize it if there's confidential stuff in there, but the 3PL quoting on your business needs to be able to see things like how many orders am I going to pick each day? How many lines per order generally are they going to be? How many eaches for each line? So, I'm going to go to a picking location. Am I picking individual pieces each time? Am I picking 3 or 4? Am I picking an inner, a carton, a layer, a pallet? All of that is vital to know to design the warehousing solution, particularly in terms of picking and dispatch. If you don't provide that, what's the 3PL going to do? They're going to be doing a lot of guesswork and a lot of assumptions. And what does that mean to you? You're going to end up with higher costs than expected. So it's in your own interests to provide lots and lots of detailed information. So that's some of the key data. Other data, if you're getting them to quote on transport and delivery and stuff as well, obviously going to be relating to that. Things like delivery locations, and a big trap there is to make sure you've got the delivery locations, often referred to as the ship to location, not the bill to location. That's where the invoices get sent. We need to know where the product gets delivered. So that's another important bit of information. So that's number 1, data. Number 2, timeframes. Most people, I would say 90% of people going through a logistics outsourcing process underestimate the amount of time required. So I talk to people every day of the week who say, oh, look, we're thinking of outsourcing our warehousing, our freight, whatever it might be. Let's talk about warehousing for the moment. How long will it take to go through this? And they think it'll take, 2 to 3 months. Oh, you're kidding. Just think of the key elements of the process. You've got to put together all of that data information. You've got to put together a service specification. You've got all of the RFP, RFT documentation. There's other videos on this. Do have a look on the channel. That's going to take you 3 to 4 weeks to assemble all of that. You're then, in the meantime, having to contact a number of potential suppliers, a number of 3PLs, and see if they're interested. That's going to take up another week or two. You're then going to distribute your documentation for them to provide quotes and so on, the tender documentation. You've got to allow time for them to respond. And obviously, the bigger your operation, the more complex it is, the more time they're going to need. I'd say that as an absolute minimum, they're going to need 4 to 6 weeks, even just for a simple warehousing solution to put that together. Longer if you can. So think of 6 weeks probably as a good term there. So we're already up to 10 or 12 weeks. We're then going to get the responses in. We're going to go through an evaluation process. We're going to be doing due diligence on the various 3PLs. It is very, very difficult to get that done in 3 or 4 months. I think a more comfortable time frame is probably 6 months. And then depending, of course, on whether this is going to be an existing facility that they're going to put you into or a new build, that could be 18 months or 2 years. But let's assume it's an existing facility. Think of 6 months, 6 to 8 months as really being a more realistic time frame. I have been encouraged over the last few weeks. We've had a couple of companies approach us to assist them through this process. And they've been saying, we're looking to pick a new 3PL next year in 12 months' time. And I think, thank heavens, you've got a realistic time frame. You're not going to have to rush it. You're going to be able to do it really well. So a little bit of a message there. If you're going to be outsourcing, or if for whatever reason you're going to the market to change providers, start early. Don't rush yourself. Allow plenty of time. 6 to 8 months probably is comfortable. If you've got more, that's great. Number 3, where do people make mistakes? Number 3 would be on who they approach to quote for their business, both in terms of type of company and number. You don't want a cast of thousands. It's too much work for you, and it makes you look unprofessional, to be honest. If you're going out to virtually every 3PL in the marketplace, what does that say to the market? It says that you're a pretty uninformed buyer and you're not really sure who to approach. I always think of maybe 4, 5, maximum 6, and I've said this in a number of videos in the past. I like to get through the process so I've got 2 or 3 really strong contenders at the end. So work back from the end point. You want to have 2 or 3 having gone through the tendering process that you're very comfortable with. Assuming a couple are going to drop out, you're maybe going to start with 5. But I certainly wouldn't be doing more than that. And pick the right ones. That's really important. Do your research, get some help if you need it, but go to the right providers. I've had a number of 3PLs over the years sort of say to me, I'm not quite sure why company X approached us. We don't do that work. We don't have experience in that industry. So do your homework and pick the right ones. So there we go, 3 very common mistakes that people make in logistics outsourcing. Let's just recap. The data, really important step. Allowing enough time, 6 to 8 months probably. If it's a new build for a warehouse, it's going to be much longer, obviously. And approaching the right 3PLs. So there we go, get those 3 right, and that'll get you on track to a really good outsourcing process. If you need some help with it, of course, do reach out. You can reach me on LinkedIn, and I'll put a link down below as well. So helping companies go through this process is something that we're doing every day of the week. But hopefully these tips will help you do it yourself. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. And don't forget, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. If you've got any questions, do ask them down below. Bye for now.